What do you think the conceivable near term looks like with the possible entrance of more institutional investors? In other words, if we see, well, let me ask a better question. It was very noteworthy and newsworthy when Paul Tudor Jones wrote his memo detailing why he was investing. I think it was something like 100 million into Bitcoin or Bitcoin-like equivalents, some type of crypto equivalent, if not crypto itself. Do you anticipate that more institutionals are going to come in, sovereign wealth funds, things like that? And how do you think the story and the landscape could change over the next handful of years?
I think it's inevitable. Look, Bitcoin and crypto still have risks, right? A lot of these algorithms and schemes are new. Even Bitcoin, through its proof of work mechanism, you could argue that it tends towards centralization because it gets managed by these anonymous miners and data centers have economies of scale. And so it will end up being more centralized than people would like. There are up-and-coming competitors like Ethereum. There's privacy issues, on the Bitcoin blockchain, you can be tracked forever. So it's not perfect. People talk about quantum computing, breaking it. I don't think that's true. I think you can upgrade the encryption algorithm, just as well or better. But there are always potential problems, right, which are not completely resolved. But every time we face one of these reckonings and that problem gets resolved, the value goes up, the story becomes stronger. And so the same way when Paul Tudor Jones or MicroStrategy buy Bitcoin, the story is becoming stronger. The set of believers is increasing, the validation is increasing, and now more people can come in and hang their hat on this and say, okay, if Paul Tudor Jones agrees and Michael Saylor agrees, then I agree to be in that set of people who believe that this is going to be the new way to store value and wealth. And so now I'm joining their wealth storage scheme. And the early people then get rewarded for it. So one way to think about Bitcoin in particular is, or even actually any of the cryptocurrencies, is it's a Swiss bank account. But it's a Swiss bank account with finite space. And if you want shelf space in that Swiss bank account with finite space, you have to buy out one of the existing holders in that space. So imagine a Swiss bank account that's impregnable. It's a new one. No government can break into it. It's secured by consensus across millions of people using massive computation power around the globe. And if you want one of those safety deposit boxes, you got to buy it from someone who's already there. So as long as the demand for new people trying to get in the Swiss bank account is greater than the supply of people who are trying to get out of that Swiss bank account, then you're going to have to pay more for that box. And that's where the speculative power of it comes from. And I think it's going to take a good crisis to really see what crypto is worth. And actually, so far, it's been weird because...
Yeah, the people have said that crypto failed the crisis test with COVID, right?
I mean, it did and didn't. What it didn't do was it didn't skyrocket, right? It didn't go, Bitcoin didn't go to 100K as everybody fled the US dollar. But that kind of shows you how resilient the dollar is and how far we are from losing global reserve currency status. But at the same time, it didn't collapse either. It didn't go down. It went down briefly as people needed cash to meet various margin calls and loans, but overall it stayed very stable. And I would say the number of people who have gotten involved in crypto recently as a true wealth protection mechanism is the largest I've ever seen. So I do think that the holder base has gone up. I don't know if we're going to see like real, $3,000 Bitcoin ever again in my lifetime. We might see zero if something breaks completely, but I don't think we're going to see like a bunch of people leaving and losing faith in it, and that's why it goes to 3K. Bitcoin tends to hit these highs, then crash back down to a plateau, hang out in a plateau for a while, and then go back to a new high. And I kind of feel like we're, around the 10K level. Who knows? I don't want to make price predictions, but, I feel like there's a stronger base of holders now than there has ever been. So each one of these people who comes and validates it. Paul Tudor Jones validates it for other hedge fund managers. Hedge fund managers validate it for sovereign wealth funds. Sovereign wealth funds, will validate it for central banks. Eventually, some country out there is going to say, actually, we inflated our currency too much, our currency collapsed, nobody trusts us anymore, we have to adopt a new national currency. Instead of pegging to the dollar, let's peg to Bitcoin, or let's use Bitcoin, or let's use some other cryptocurrency, or let's be clever and buy up a bunch of Bitcoin and then announce we're going to use Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin will skyrocket and we're all rich, right? So I think there are other scenarios where it ends up being a lot more valuable, but it's going to be stumbling steps forward and backward. It's not going to be like necessarily in one fell swoop, until it is, right? That's the nature of black swans. You can't predict them. And when it happens suddenly. Like I had a friend who used to tell me, he's now a hardcore Bitcoiner. It's funny. He actually helped write a book on Bitcoin now. But when I first talked to him about Bitcoin years and years ago, he said, what's the big deal? He's like, if I ever have to flee the country, I'll just buy Bitcoin then. And I said, yeah, when you have to flee the country, your entire fortune is going to buy you one Bitcoin, right? That's the problem. It's scarcity. It's supply and demand. So you can't, so it's like anything else, a store of value. It's a hedge. You can't wait till the last second. And I do think more and more smart people are coming into it every single day.
And I think the